Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. Hey, were you hanging out with us for the Spa Business Bootcamp? Well, if you were on day 5, when we were talking about the scale phase, I was telling a story about a gentleman who started an e-com store and had done $75 million in sales to date. $75 million in skincare sales from his e-com site. Incredible. That gentleman's name, that man's name is Matt Edmundson, and he is the guest on our podcast today. Now, Matt shares some interesting marketing ideas and strategies on how to promote your store and simultaneously help people solve their skincare problems. I love that bit. He was also really honest in saying that whatever time you think it'll take to grow your e-com store, which is essentially starting an entirely new business, right? You should actually double that. We always think, I want to start an e-com store and I want to start a private label line, or I want to become a spa coach, or whatever those things are. It is essentially starting a whole new business, and there's so many more things that go into it that, you don't know what you don't know. So I love that he was just really honest in saying, you should actually double that if you're wanting to have the wide reach that he was, and I know so many of you are. So let me just do a quick read of his bio, and then we can jump into all the good stuff. Okay, so Matt is a real-world e-commerce entrepreneur and coach. His goal is to show aspiring entrepreneurs sure and simple steps in getting a digital business off the ground and seasoned entrepreneurs on how to take their business to the next level. Matt is also the CEO of Jersey Company, a group of health, wellness, and beauty companies that deliver products and services to over 120,000 loyal customers. The group includes the e-commerce business Jersey Beauty Company, which went online in 2006 and since then has achieved global sales of $75 million. That's over 7 million products shipped. Matt also has a podcast where he chats with experts in the field of e-commerce on how to grow and develop online businesses. All right, there it is, you guys. This is a good one. Without further ado, let's go ahead and play that interview. All right, Matt, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so excited to have you on because e-com has just been exploding. I read an article that e-com advanced 5 years just in the pandemic of the technology. And I know in our community, in the spa world, there's so many people that are wanting to add this additional stream of revenue to really not have all their eggs in one basket, right? And we've seen a lot of success, but I think that your experience, your background, we briefly did your bio and the intro, but you run a beauty e-com site. It's done over 75 million in sales. You've been in from the beginning, from, 2006, even before that. You've got a love for spa. Like, what are your thoughts on what has happened in the past year? Like, what has been going through your mind as it goes to e-com? Like seeing all of these people and seeing everybody trying to jump into this business model.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think you're right. The amount of people that have decided to do e-commerce businesses over the last 12 months has shot up at some incredible rate of knots. And of course, the amount of people wanting to buy online has also shot up. And so I've not read that stat that it's accelerated 5 years in the last year, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was actually the case, because, you've seen it yourself. You've done it yourself. How much more stuff do you now buy online compared to this time last year?
Yeah, I think Shopify did an article about it. We'll put the link below this episode, but yeah, I can send it to you as well. But it was a really interesting article that Shopify did about just the advancements in e-com and how comfortable people are. And, now we're seeing grandmas on Zoom and, before it was one of those things that's like, so what do you think is the biggest difference between the e-com world in 2006 versus the e-com world today?
Oh, geez. That's a really good question. I would say everything has changed, but nothing has changed. And it's a really I appreciate that sounds like a bit of a strange statement to make, but everything has changed in terms of the way you do marketing, for example, has changed, but the principles haven't changed. The way you run your e-commerce website has changed, but the principles behind it haven't. And this is one of those things that I think people find hard to understand. The basic principles, the fundamental principles of business: give a great product, give a great service, be kind to your customers. Do you know what I mean? Give good value. Those principles are still true in e-commerce. They were true in 2006. They're true in 2021. Okay, so those things still the same. The way we fulfill that, the way that we do that, has probably changed a lot since 2006. The classic example for me would be Google AdWords. You know, when we first started Jersey Beauty Company in 2006, honestly, it was back then a case of if you build it, they will come, because that's what happened. We literally set the site live one evening in August, and I'd not told Google. There was no such thing really as Facebook marketing back then. We just literally set the site live, and then the next day we come in and find out people have sort of somehow found it and ordered product offers, and we were amazed. Wow. That doesn't happen anymore. You know, I mean, very, very rarely. I mean, we were very lucky with our timing. But yeah, so I'd say the principles are still the same. The outworking of it has changed quite a bit.
So being lucky with the timing, do you feel like this is a good time or a challenging time to get into e-com?
Oh, good question again. I would say both. It's good because there has never been such a demand for online as there is right now, nor has there ever been such an acceptance of online as there is right now. People have got used to buying online, and not just, you know, beauty products, but buying literally everything. You know, the local restaurant is now doing takeout, you know, and you can order online, whereas before you had to go in the restaurant and sit down. But I think people have got used to this idea that actually online is much more accessible. So you've got a much bigger market. I would say it's challenging because actually, it's like I said before, you know, we had this, if you build it, they will come. It's not like that anymore. I mean, we were talking about that before you started recording, but it's not like that. You have to, when you build your e-commerce website, when you build your e-commerce business, you have to approach it as a business, which is more than just throwing up a website and hoping it works, right? You've got to be much more strategic. You've got to have a plan. You've got to have an understanding of what you're doing, because there are 1,000 other people now doing the same thing, you know, all trying for that consumer's attention. So
really understanding the competitive advantage, and like building an e-com site is essentially starting a completely separate business. And if you're a spa, right? If you're a brick and mortar spa, it can be an extension of your brand, but your ideal client, you know, you may be with your brick and mortar, you may be marketing to those in a 10-mile radius of your spa. With e-com, you could be marketing to the entire country, right? So
absolutely,
how you're communicating with them, how you're going to stand out from the other spas, what types of services are you offering? How are you going to stand out from other e-com sites? These are all things that need to be thought about. And I think, I don't know, I'm curious about your thoughts on this, but anytime someone starts something new in their company, I always say, give yourself at least 20% more time than you think you're going to need, because there's always something additional that comes up. There's always something that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or I did, you know, it just always takes longer and more resources than you had originally imagined.
Yeah, it's very, very true. I would say, actually, you're being very generous with the 20%. We always say to clients, double it. You know,
really?
Yeah. Whatever time you think it's going to be, double it, because that's probably a slightly more realistic, especially if you've never done it before, because there's so much learning you've got to do to sort of figure out your way through. Does that make sense? And so that always takes a lot longer than you expect it's going to. It's unfortunately not a case of watching a YouTube video and you're a master, right? It just doesn't work like that.
So part of what you do on the consulting side of your company is you help brands with their e-com, right? You're helping them with that. So with your clients that you are helping with e-com, what do you feel like are their biggest challenges when they're launching their brands?
The biggest challenge anybody ever faces when they're launching an e-commerce business, and this is especially true for people in the spa world, in the beauty world, in that if your aim is to sell product, like a beauty product, it is incredibly competitive. It's probably the most competitive industry online, or certainly one of them. And so where I see most people fail 99% of the time is the way they approach e-commerce. It's like they've not thought about the product. Fundamentally, e-commerce is an online shop where people buy a product or a service or a digital product or a download or something. They're buying something. And you've really got to think about that product that people are going to buy. Okay. If you don't think that through and take the time necessary to get that right, you've got no chance. And this is where I think a lot of people fail. And this is where I think a lot of people are going to struggle in the pandemic. They've just literally thrown anything online to try and generate some cash, which I totally understand, but it's the wrong approach.
So when you say they've got to think about the product, how are we clearly communicating? Are we having reviews up there? Are we having multiple images, like that type of thing, or like how you're positioning it?
Yeah, think about all of it. Okay, so let's take a typical product that someone's going to sell in a spa. What would that be?
A moisturizer.
A moisturizer. Okay. So if you take a moisturizer, and is that moisturizer a branded moisturizer, or is it a moisturizer that is either created or white labeled by the spa?
Yeah. Let's say a white label, a private label.
So we've got a white labeled product in the moisturizer space. Okay. Now I run an online beauty business. I know how complicated it is to try and get somebody to switch their moisturizer from one that they're currently using, especially if the one that they've got is working. Okay. So if they're buying a moisturizer already and that's working well for them, getting them to switch to your moisturizer, that is going to take a lot of thinking. So you have got to position that product so well. And you've got to think about, how do I get them to switch? What is it that's going to take them to switch? What's the language that I use when I'm talking to somebody in the spa? How do I get them to switch? Normally, my experience here is they have a sample of that product and they try it and they go, yeah, this is great for my skin. The price is a good price for what it is that I get. I like the therapist that's selling it to me. There's a relationship there. How do I do that on my website? And so that, when I say that when you think about you've got to think about the product, that's what you've got to do. You've got to get yourself in the head of a consumer. So if you're putting your e-commerce website up and you're selling to your existing customers, awesome. That's going to be really straightforward. But if you're wanting to build that business out and you're wanting to sell to someone on the opposite side of the country, how do you do that? That's a really fascinating question.
I think as estheticians and beauty therapists, as you guys call them in the UK, I think that we do have the advantage of building relationship on a different level. And we're seeing a lot of these complimentary virtual consults. Mm-hmm. Let's hop on Zoom. Let's look at your skin. Let's do a custom home care regimen. And it's by someone who's trained in the space. Mm-hmm. And so I think that for our spa owners, how do you position that to create as much of an experience as it's like going in the spa, mm-hmm. but create that in your e-com site where they can look at things, they can ask questions, they can feel like they're getting something customized to them. I think that is really the powerful piece, and having a very, very dialed in brand. Mm-hmm. And who are you targeting, right? Are you targeting 40-year-old moms that drive a minivan, or are you targeting a single 30-something that lives in a city that, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. just the more niche you can go, the better, because I believe the brand that does everything is the brand that does nothing. And
yeah, that's exactly right. And it's much harder to advertise the product. And let's be real, you're going to have to do some kind of paid media to grow this
Oh,
business.
100%. Yeah.
So the more you can niche your audience down, the more you can niche your product to a specific audience, the better your advertising is going to be, because you can then gear your landing page all around that product for that person with the right imagery, the right language, the right copy, the right price, all of those things. You're right. The more you can niche that down, the more likelihood you are going to get in that sale.
So I want to hear a little backstory of Jersey Beauty Company. So you said, timing you got right. What else did you get right?
We built a business. It was, let me be totally frank, we were quite lucky. I wasn't an e-commerce expert in 2006. We were just a little bit lucky. And we thought, if we could sell, we launched in August 2006. And we thought by the end of 2006, if we could sell 10 grand's worth of product, we would be stoked. We would be super happy. Do you know what I mean? We would be on target. And so by the end of December 2006, we didn't reach our £10,000 target. We'd sold £400,000 worth of product, right? That's about what, $700,000 worth of product in 4 months. It was crazy. It just absolutely blew up overnight. And
were you doing paid advertising right from the beginning? Or not? I mean, I know day one you said like people found you, but once people started finding you, did you start doing the paid?
We did Google AdWords, which looked very different back then. And that's how we started to reach an audience. And the other thing that we tapped into, again, quite by accident, was the forums. And so there's a forum in the UK called Mumsnet. And one or two of our customers posted things on Mumsnet, and that's when it took off. Everybody from that forum saw these posts, and then they started coming to us in the thousands and just buying the products, which was, fantastic.
So logistically, I know you're saying, okay, luck, but you don't sell $75 million of product with there has to be some business acumen behind it, right?
Yes,
you knew what to do, logistically, when you go from 0 to 700,000, there's a lot in fulfillment and distribution in all of that. Were you just really flying by the seat of your pants and making decisions every single day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you, it was different, but no, we were totally flying by the seat of our pants, and every day was a challenge. Every day was, and don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful problem to solve. It was a much better problem to have to solve. How do I do this today? How do I solve this logistic problem? How do I get the shipping costs down? How do I get the product quicker? How do I inform the customer better? And one of the things that we realized, what happened between 2006 and 2010, and the company grew, right? And it grew really, really quickly. 2010, we had a major step change in our business. And this was when I pretty much took over the running of the company at this point. And we wanted to change the business model. And this was, I think, really, really pivotal for us as a business. A friend of mine drew on a napkin a triangle. So if you can kind of picture this in your head, you may have seen it before. He drew a triangle. And in one corner, he wrote the word price. In another corner, he wrote the word service. And in another corner, he wrote the word quality. So price, service, and quality. And he said to me, you can only pick two because you can't do all three. In other words, you can't offer a quality product at a low price and still deliver good quality customer service. Okay, you can't offer your customer high customer service and a high price, but then deliver a really poor quality product. Do you see what I mean? You've got to pick which ones. And we were at that time, I would say we were a price quality model. We had a quality product which we delivered very cheaply. And that's part of the reason why we grew. But our customer service wasn't great. And so in 2010, we switched our business model and we said, what we're going to do is we're going to become a quality service business. In other words, our prices are going to go up, but we are going to invest an awful lot more into delivering customer service. And so if you track our sales from 2010, so to 2011, we made this decision, sales fall slightly. I was very nervous at this point, I'm not going to lie, because sales are dipping. But 2012, we had the best year we'd ever had. It took about a year for that model to change and for customers to understand what was going on. And 2012 was our best year at that point. I mean, it just totally exploded.
And do you think that is because focusing on that high level of customer service, you're retaining more customers and getting them to repurchase from you?
That's exactly right. Yeah, okay. That's exactly right. We understood, we got to the point of our thinking where we're like, we looked at how much business was coming from repeat customers. And we thought, man alive, it's so much easier to sell to a repeat customer if we could invest in our customer service. So now, over half of our income comes from repeat customers. So, it's a massive part of our business right now.
I'm such a believer in client retention and keeping your existing clients feeling like VIPs. And so often in the spa world, and I think in businesses in general, it's how do I get new clients? How do I get new clients? Constantly on that hamster wheel. But there's so many studies out there that will show like it's so much easier to sell to an existing client. You've built that know, like, and trust factor. And yet we are just constantly on this like new client special or, like first time client thing. And it's really just missing the boat on like, how do you go deep instead of going wide?
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So important.
And when you do that, what we discovered quite quickly was those customers that had great customer service, the ones that come back time and time again, not only do they spend more, not only does their lifetime value go up, they're the ones which will share you on social media. They're the ones which will tell their friends to come buy from you.
What are the main KPIs that you're tracking? So you mentioned lifetime customer value, but what are the main KPIs that you're tracking in an e-commerce business?
Well, you're going to track the obvious ones. You're going to track how many people are coming to your website. How many of those people are converting into buyers? So what's my conversion rate? Is that going up? Is that going down? You're going to track things like, we call it on-ramping. So for example, if you go to a product page and you're not ready to buy the product, what else can I do to connect with you? Which is normally getting an email address out of somebody. How can I do that? So you want to measure how successful your main call to action is. You want to measure how successful your on-ramp call to action is, the sort of secondary one. You're going to want to measure how long people are on your website. You're going to want to measure things like bounce rate, some of the sort of standard Google Analytics stuff. I think you're going to want to measure all of those, but you're going to want to measure things like how many of our customers are recommending us to other customers. How many customer service emails have we got? Do you know what I mean? And how many times have we been asked?
How long does it take us to respond to a customer service email?
Yeah. And how many times do we get asked the same question? That's always a bit of a telltale sign. It means you're not giving the information out properly in the first place. So you're going to, whatever works for your business, you're going to find these little nooks, these little crannies, as we like to call them, and go, actually, if we do well here, it really benefits us. So you're going to want to measure the main ones. Turnover, for example, how much are we actually doing in sales? But it's the other ones you're going to want to measure. The three main ones I was always told to measure, and I think it's still true today. There was only three numbers you really needed to be aware of. Number one was how many customers have you got? Number two was the average order value. And number three was the average order frequency. And so if you understood those three numbers and you could grow any one of those three things, you would grow your business. So if I increase the number of customers, if I increase their average order value, so how can I increase the spend when they come on the website? And the third one, average order frequency, how can I get them to come back sooner? Rather than if my average gap between orders is 6 months, how do I get that down to 5 months? How do I get that down to 4 months? What can I do to increase those three things? And I think if you focus on those three things, you can build a really, really great e-commerce business.
Yeah, it sounds like digital marketing is such a huge piece in any e-com business. It's really understanding paid advertising, understanding funnels and email marketing and all of those pieces really, really play into it and are skills that I think would greatly benefit any business owner that's wanting to go e-com.
I would say yes, if you're wanting to grow quick. If you're wanting to grow organically, it's not as important. And the reason I say this is because when you use words, or when I've used, not you, but when I've used words in the past, like funnels and digital marketing and paid advertising, it scares a lot of people off. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't want to do that. I've heard too many horror stories. I don't want to go down that road. A few years ago, we set up our own beauty brand. So we had our own branded moisturizer. And we were like, right, how do we sell this? We could do the paid media route. And that is, if you know how to do paid media, definitely go down that road if you know what you're doing. But you can be creative. So one of the things that we did, we had a girl at the time working for us, Esther, a beautiful young lady who was part of our customer service team. And we just said to Esther, listen, I just want you to spend all day on Twitter. That's what I want you to do. I want you to go on Twitter and see if anybody is writing on there, oh, my skin's feeling a bit dry today, or I've got a breakout. Do you know what I mean? Amazing stuff that people write on Twitter about their skin, right? And so we just set some alerts, which was always searching Twitter. When something popped up, we tried quite quickly to respond, go, hey, listen, sorry to hear about that. We've got some samples of a product which I think is going to really help you with ... Would you like me to send some out to you? If you like, I can send them out to you totally free of charge. Just head over to the website, to this page, use this code, and I'll make sure you don't pay anything to get them. And just all I ask is you just let me know how you get on. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever works for you. And we must have got 10, 20 leads a day just doing that.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of like the Gary Vee strategy. Do you listen to Gary Vee at all? He started his company. Yeah, started his company by just listening and responding and helping on social media.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? So don't let the funnels, don't let the digital marketing, the paid media and all that sort of stuff put you off starting, because you can start very simply. You can start organically. You can say, right, what I'm going to do is actually make sure we service our own customers super, super well online. And I'm going to reward them if they share it out to their friends, right? You're not going to grow as quick. You're not going to grow as fast, but it will be that organic growth whilst you're figuring out the funnels, whilst you're figuring out the paid media. You don't have to know everything before you hit the ground. You just have to know a few things really well. And I still think the best marketing strategy is taking care of your customers.
I love that advice. Anything else you want to add for spa owners, estheticians that are wanting to jump into the world of e-commerce for you to make this episode feel complete?
Oh, there's so much we could throw out there. I think the bottom line is, you know what? Do it. Get online because it makes an awful lot of sense to do it. Take this opportunity because I don't know how often these opportunities are going to come around, but as things currently stand, setting up an e-commerce business makes an awful lot of sense. And don't let fear or anxiety put you off doing it. You can just literally go to Shopify and set up an account. You don't have to spend lots of money or Squarespace or, whichever one you prefer. And you can set up an account very cheaply and very easily. You usually don't need any coding experience to get going. You just need to be consistent and show up every day. And I think if you do that and look after your customers well, all the other stuff, all of that you can learn. Do you know what I mean? But get your fundamentals right, get your product right, your product images, your product copy, the positioning of it. Definitely do a product video talking about the product. Do all the stuff which you can do in your voice that no one else can do. Just like you were talking to a client in the room in your spa. Figure out a way to bring that voice to your website. And I think you'll do super, super well. I love the idea that you mentioned earlier of the online consultations. I think that's great. And doing those kind of things. If it was me, I would be doing a Facebook Live pretty much every day, especially if my clients were in their sort of 40s, if that was my main my main range, I would be like, you know what, I'm going to start getting into live streaming where I can start doing Q&As. If my clients are younger, I'm probably going to do it on Instagram because I can do that. You can do that with a mobile phone. Everyone's got a mobile phone, right? Mm-hmm. And just start building your tribe. That's fundamentally it, right? Just attract people. They're going to start asking you questions. Build your tribe. And then the other thing that I would say is don't limit your e-commerce business to just product. Now, what I mean by this is, if I was in the spa business, and I do know the spa industry quite well, if I was in the spa business, there would be a number of things I'd be looking to sell online. Number one, I would be looking to sell products. Okay. I'd be looking to sell my own branded products, and I would probably go out there and get some branded products to sell on there as well, just to start to build traffic and get people in. The second type of product I'm going to be selling, okay, is a digital product. How can I create a digital product that's going to help my clients? For example, we're working with a lady here in the UK called Jo Jewett, and she is a really, really fun, beautiful lady. Okay. She's in her 60s. She won't mind me saying that at all. She's from the northeast of England and has a really strong accent. She is just as straight as a... I mean, the way she talks, you either love her or you hate her. In England, we say she's like Marmite. Do you know what I mean? You're either turned off or you're turned on by... And I just love her. She's just great, Jo. And Jo is fascinating to me because here's a lady who is a professional makeup artist in her 60s. And when you read her client list, right? So you go down, Madonna. Oh, that's interesting. Bette Midler. Oh, okay. Princess Diana. Do you know what I mean? Especially in the modern world, right? Everyone's fascinated with Harry. Well, she was Harry's mum's makeup artist. And so we built a website, tried selling the products. The products thing didn't really work. But what is starting to work for Jo is her Facebook or her Instagram lives, where she's showing how to do makeup tutorials online. Okay. Guess what? Guess what's being developed now? We have got some digital products being done where she is going to go in depth into doing these tutorials, and they won't be that expensive, maybe $37 to get into. But she can do those and people want them. Do you see what I mean?
I can't tell you how many times when I was practicing as an esthetician and doing makeup, how do you do a smoky eye? Right? It's like this question of, and putting something up of a tutorial that's that low price point. I've known a few makeup artists that have done things like that and done very well. So yes, I love that advice.
Yeah. That advice. Think digital products. What you have a knowledge, you have a skill that people want. And if you present it in the right way, people will buy it. And that's another big learning, I think, under COVID. A lot of the e-commerce business has gone crazy, but one of the products which is outstripping every other product is digital products, the online course. What can you do that would generate, an extra income? What kind of course could you create? What kind of tutorials, what kind of lessons could you create? And I think it's a phenomenal opportunity right now. It really is a phenomenal opportunity. So I'd be selling products, I'd be selling digital products, and I would actually be selling services online as well.
For them to come into your spa or yeah. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you know people like across the country, if there's like 4 or 5 of you that can get together, and it's like, well, we'll get together and we'll form like a little group, and it's like, well, okay, we'll sell, massage, and you can get it here, or here, wherever you are in the country. Create the nice days that people can fly in and do, and you pick them up from the airport. It's why not? People are interested in that sort of thing.
Why not? That's a great way to close this episode. So Matt, tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, stay in touch with you, keep learning from you. Where's the best place?
Well, you can reach out to me at mattedmundson.com. That's my website. Or if you go to Instagram or Facebook or any of them really and just search for me, you'll find me. We have a weekly podcast called the Ecommerce Podcast. If you want to know more about e-commerce, where a bit like you, I get to interview some phenomenal guests. And so you can get into that. Of course, I have a digital product. Why would I not, right? But all the information is available on my website, mattedmundson.com. You'll find it all there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll include all the links below this episode. And if you guys want to keep this conversation going, be sure to head on over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group. We've got tons of additional resources and love answering questions and keeping the conversation going. All right, I will catch you on the next episode.